is what I came here to do. I walk that wire and I take that step. Won't look down, got no regrets. Won't look down, got no regrets. I was made for this. I was made for this. Born in the wild, formed in the fire, built for the battle. Oh, I was made for this. I was made for this. Mind over matter, silence the doubters. I have the power. Oh, I was made for this. Like an army of one.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. I'm Loren Culp, and this is Common Sense with Chief Culp. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different. You know, I usually talk about politics and things that are happening in our state and in our nation. Today, I'm going to have a special guest, a dear friend of mine from Florida. She is the author of at least 6 books. And she's a counselor, a mentor to many people, including myself. She's a devoted wife and mother of 3. Lives in Florida. And a couple of years ago, she stepped out into the world of publishing. She started her own publishing company called O'Leary Publishing. And she is my friend. And I'd like to welcome April O'Leary to the show.
Thanks, Loren. So glad to be here.
Hi, April. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. So
I am
we've
so
known
happy to
each
be
other
here.
We've known each other for a couple of years now. I had this brilliant idea to write a book back in 2018, the one right behind me, American Cop. And we'd met previously, and I got a hold of you, and you helped me write that book, helped me get it published. And your company has grown quite significantly. You have several authors and several books that you published, right?
We do. We do. It is growing by leaps and bounds. And Loren is one of our first authors who took a chance on us back in 2018 when, other than my own books, I didn't have a lot of street credibility at the time. So I'll forever be grateful for you for taking that chance, Loren.
Oh, it was incredible. You know, I wrote that book in a month, and then you had it edited and published, all the pictures put in there, the cover, the front cover, the back cover, and everything. And it was on the market within about a month, and just over a month. It was crazy.
It was.
That is typical, correct?
I would say we rushed your project because you had such a timely message. And for those who are following you, who knew you back in 2018, you had a Facebook post that went viral in November and had gotten some national media attention. And when you're getting those 2 to 3 minute to 5 minute spots, I think you really felt so strongly that you weren't able to get your message across, that you had the idea to do the book. And we thought it was really important to get this out while, striking while the iron was hot. So we made it happen.
Right.
But I had a great author who was motivated to do it. So.
Right. And I never dreamed that, here we would be 2 years later, and it's still relevant today. It's amazing. But I want to talk just a second, or however long you want to, about a book that you wrote. It's called The Old Cocoon. And
oh, okay.
I can relate to that book very well. You want to tell everybody what the basis is of that book?
Sure, I would love to. So The Old Cocoon, which actually is funny enough, just came out in Spanish. It's called El Viejo Capullo. It's our first Spanish book. is a little illustrated book, and it was a book that I wrote in probably about 30 minutes one morning. You know, if you're going through life, you know, going along your journey, and all of a sudden, you know, something happens that transforms you or it makes you see something differently, and you can no longer be that person that you were before. That's the story of the old cocoon. It's the person who is just happy. They're eating their leaves. They've no idea what experience is going to be coming down the pipeline. You know, they've never experienced a cocoon. They don't even know what that is. And all of a sudden nature takes over, and the process of life changes. And so, you know, the cocoon becomes the butterfly, and then the butterfly sort of has this moment of like, wait a second, I don't know if I want to be a butterfly. Maybe it was easier to be a caterpillar. And then by the end of the book realizes that they can fly like they never could before. So I view that book as something that's happened to me through the various evolutions of my own journey as writing as an author to starting this publishing company, but certainly, Loren, with what's happened with you and your transformation over the past 2 years. I mean, Loren and I have joked before that, you know, if we would have taken a blank piece of paper when we were launching the American Cop book in February of 2019 and said, what are all the possible outcomes for this book? I do not think either of us would have written down run for governor. Would we?
No, absolutely not. That was the furthest thing from my mind, you know, running for public office. But you know, that book, you know, and I don't remember when you wrote that. What was the year you wrote that book?
It was last year, 2020. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. It's I relate to that very much. Definitely. And not only me, but there are a lot of people. I'm looking at my computer right now. I was looking at your reviews on Amazon, and people love this book, and I know why. It's absolutely incredible. There are I don't think you have one bad review. They're all 4 stars, 100%.
Wow, thank
So
you.
if people want to get a copy of The Old Cocoon, it is available on Amazon. And you just said
it's a little
in Spanish
gift book,
as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a gift book. So it's something that has a page in the front that has a to and a from. So it's really not for anyone who may be going through a life transformation. Maybe they're gone through a hard time and some grieving, and they're going to need to reinvent themselves. It's great for graduation, for people that are giving birth. You know, it's kind of just that book that helps you realize that like life is always a continual evolution and transformation, and that's a natural part of life. And it's natural to also mourn what was, and to have a period of time where you're not quite sure if your wings work yet, and then you finally realize they do. So I love that book.
Right.
And it was our first illustrated book. I actually played with it because I had written it, and I thought, you know, I've had people approach me about publishing for children's books, and we really don't do children's books. And I thought, well, I want to work with an illustrator and just see what it's like, because I'm artistic with words, but not with a pen. And so I was able to find the illustrator who did the illustrations in that book, and it was a really neat experience.
It's pretty awesome. And it can be, you know, like you illustrated that book, it can be scary to step out of your comfort zone, you know, which the cocoon is for the caterpillar, right? But
yeah,
it's very, you know, once the wings sprout and you realize that things can be better by moving on, that's an incredible realization.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you writing that. Now,
Thanks, Loren.
I know that there's a lot of people, you know, I've met a ton of people out campaigning and going to speaking events, and I know that there are lots of stories that live inside of people. And I would encourage anyone to get their story out. You know, you never know who it might impact. And can you talk a little bit about the process that it would, you know, people need to go through to get their thoughts onto paper and get them published?
Of course. I have people asking me that all the time also, Loren, and saying, you know, I've been told I have a great story. I've been told I have something to share. I don't know where to start. And the first thing I say is, first of all, believe in yourself, like have the courage to share your story. I think, Loren, you could have, like many other police chiefs did at the time when your initiative passed that was restricting gun rights, you could have done nothing. You could have been like, who am I? You know, whatever. I'm in a small town. Why does my voice matter? I don't have some big brand. But you had the passion and the drive and the belief that your voice mattered. And so that's the thing I would say for somebody who's thinking about writing a book. The thing that most prevents people from writing it is thinking their voice doesn't matter. My story doesn't matter. Who's going to care? No one's going to want to read this. I don't have the skills. And, you know, you had never written a book before. So it would have been certainly easy for you to talk yourself out of it. But, you know, let me ask you, like, how did you have the courage to say, I'm going to write this? Like, what was going on in your mind?
Well, the things that were going on in my mind is that, you know, it was such an overt attack on citizens' rights that I had to stand up. I had to get information out to the elected public servants and to the public, you know, so that they would, the citizens could put pressure on their elected public servants to stand up for the citizens' rights. I mean, that's the ultimate role of our government. So I felt very strongly that, you know, even though I'd never written a book before, I had to do something. I couldn't just stand on the sidelines and watch people's rights be trampled. So that was my motivation, you know, and the surprise that I ended up on the national news for my stance. I mean, that was huge. I didn't do anything other than to stand up for the citizens in a 1,100 citizen town in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, you never know what your story or what your viewpoint on things can do. And
Yeah,
I think it's awesome. I mean, you have an excellent team. I know that from experience at O'Leary Publishing that do all kinds of things.
we do. And, you know, I think that having the courage to put your thoughts on paper, you know, Loren and I got on the phone after his Facebook post went viral and he had this idea to write this book, and we mapped it out. So I would say map your book out. Where is it that the reader is when they're going to grab your book and pick it up, and where do you want to take them? What train of thought do you want to lead them down? Or is it a chronological story of your life? Is it a story that has a point? Is it, you know, a fictional story to entertain somebody? But you have to think about, you know, I mean, if you're shooting, you know, you have a bullseye. Where is the bullseye for your reader? And right from their perspective, you know, we get a lot of manuscripts in that are, I did this, I did this, I did that. And it's nice, you know, if that's journal writing, but it's thinking more broadly about what is the message for the reader. So, and then working with the team, you know, we have editors, we have proofreaders, we have book design. Which will be out shortly. You've told them about that, I've heard. So that's coming up down the pipeline. You're going to want to read this book. I was just on the phone with my head editor, Heather DeRocher, today, who did the final proofread on An Insubordinate Life. And she was like, you know, I would vote for Loren for governor. He is just such a genuine person. He's got a heart of gold. He's got a great story. He's got a lot of common sense. And that's the goal with the book, is to give people something to, you know, anchor them. And so I say that because Heather and I tend to be a little more liberal than conservative, truth be told. But we would both cast our ballots for you, Loren.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I know. I know you probably consider yourself a Democrat. Is that correct?
Will I get shot if I answer yes to that?
Most of my listeners are Republican, but you would be surprised. Maybe you wouldn't be, but ton of Democrat support as well. I mean, it's just common sense things, you know, that bind people together. I really don't like putting labels on people. I said many times, if I didn't have to put an R or a D behind my name when I ran for office, I wouldn't have. You know,
Yeah.
I just believe in our country and our founding and citizens' rights. So I don't really like those
And
labels.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I do want to put a plug in for your new book. Can I do that?
I can't stop you.
That wasn't the point of this interview. Loren said I'd love to talk about publishing and the process and give all of you who are watching this today courage to share your stories just like he did. But I would say that, you know, for someone who knew Loren before American Cop, and for someone, you know, admittedly, you know, I grew up in an urban environment, so we didn't have hunting or guns. You know, I don't have a lot of experience with guns. And so it was a lot of learning I did in the thoughts, the thinking of how he presented his story in American Cop. And it made a lot of common sense, as Loren said. But in this book, An Insubordinate Life, you really get to see who Loren is as a human being and the choices he's made to choose his family and choose, you know, small business and choose his country through military service. And really just is such an honorable person that you'll just love him all the more by seeing the path that his life has taken him on, the various cocoons he's been in and emerged from and grown through every phase. And I think that you did such a great job writing this book and really showing the reader that, you know, while you've had average, normal experiences like most of us have, you had times where your back has been against the wall and you've risen above it and you have gotten better and better with age. So I just see this next chapter for you unfolding, and it's just beautiful to watch. It really is.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, self-promotion has not really been one of my strong points. In fact, you know, it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Am I making you feel uncomfortable?
Slightly, yes. I wanted to interview you about publishing books and things so people could get their stories out. But I mean, I appreciate that. But yeah, it makes me feel uncomfortable to self-promote. I mean, I'm, you know, not really been that type of person. Even though people would probably think that that can't be true because they saw me on stage on the campaign. But like the old cocoon, you know, like the caterpillar, climbing out of that cocoon and not really wanting to leave that cocoon, the safety of where they were at. You know, that's kind of the journey that I went on. It's a perfect illustration of what it was, you know, because
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable at all talking in front of people or being even around large crowds. You know, part of that comes from being in law enforcement and just knowing how much evil is out there, not trusting a lot of people. We went to a convention, you know, it's been I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. And I met you in person for the first time at that convention in Phoenix, Arizona. And if you remember, I didn't feel comfortable being in the middle of that huge crowd. I went and stood with my back against the wall.
Mm-hmm. I do. I
Yeah.
do. And I remember the first time we did a Facebook Live. Can I tell a story on you?
I'm not sure which one you're going to tell, but go ahead. I'm an open book.
So
I'll just sit here and get embarrassed.
So the first time, when this was right after American Cop came out, and we had put together a Facebook launch group, and we had gotten people excited, and you know, people went out and bought it. And as you all know, the story is that the book hit #1 in multiple Amazon categories, and people were just very excited about it. And the next step was to really start to do some Facebook Lives. And I remember I was traveling. My youngest daughter plays travel volleyball, and we had scheduled a Facebook Live, and I was in a hotel lobby that night, and Loren was out in the back of his house, and behind him was the crate. Do you call it a crate? Where his dog, Karma, was lapping up water so loudly I could
a dog kennel.
barely hear him. A dog kennel, thank you. And it's so funny. It was just like, you know, it's the saying, like, you're going to be bad before you're good. Like, you can't show up on camera and have the right lighting and the right audio and smile and look at the camera the first time you push go live, you know? But Loren was willing to show up, and do it. And then now we laugh. We're like, remember back then when Karma was like lapping up her water? We're like, is this dog ever gonna stop drinking their water?
Karma definitely loves water, but yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I had him. I thought, well, what better background than to have my police canine? But apparently, he decided that it was time to drink about 2 gallons of water, and yeah, I remember that. But
So, and look at you now, so it's amazing. It's amazing. And a book really can open doors. And that's the other thing I'll say for someone who might be considering writing a book is when we were talking about, if Loren and I were going to brainstorm at that point in time, like what's going to happen with American Cop? Where is this book going to go? What doors is it going to open? We could never have predicted how many people were going to really love this book and how much success it would have and how many doors it would open for him politically, when that was on the radar. And so, for you to share your story, you just don't know who's going to read it or who's going to be inspired by it or who's going to get hope because they're going to read maybe some of the struggles you've been through and they're going to see themselves in your story and know that they too can get to the other side. So, I think that that's as a global community, the more we can share those positive stories and have people that are really lifting one another up, the better off we are together.
yeah, I agree, and I encourage anyone listen to this, or maybe you know someone who may not be listening to this right now, a friend of yours, a relative, and they have a story that they need to tell. I strongly suggest that they go to o'learypublishing.com and get a hold of April and her team. It's absolutely amazing. And by the way, April, I just ordered, as you know, last week, I ordered 1,000 more American Cop books. Who would have thought 2 years later that I would still be ordering 1,000 books at a time to send out to people? But they got here in record time, by the way. There was a big delay.
They did
last year, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because I know so many industries and individuals were impacted by COVID and shutdowns and sickness and all kinds of hiccups in the business world, and publishing took its hit as well. We had authors that were set to launch books in spring, and we had to switch from in-person book launches to virtual book launches. And the printing industry was really affected. And so when Loren was campaigning, you may not know, but behind the scenes, he had books at his events and he was signing them and all of that. And it was really a challenging hurdle to get those books printed and shipped because the printing was so delayed just across the board for the whole industry. So I think the good news is we're finally all catching up. I think everyone's feeling like they can breathe a little easier now. And the books that were taking 45 days, you got in like a week, maybe.
Yeah, that was very surprising. So, okay, so if somebody has a story that they need to get out, what's the first thing they should do? I obviously contact you, and then what's the process from there?
Well, if they go to o'learypublishing.com, there's a free publisher's guide they can download in it. If you have nothing net, just download free publishing guide, and it'll tell you how to take your idea and get it into a manuscript format. And then from there, from the manuscript, how you can take various publishing paths. I mean, we're a hybrid publisher, which we provide the team, the editorial, the design, and all that of a traditional publisher. But the author gets to own their work and, like you said, order your books, and you have more freedom to sort of do what you want to do with your book. The traditional publisher really sort of has the control of your work. And someone who goes the traditional publishing route really needs to already have their own platform built, meaning you've got your own Facebook followers and your own email list and all that, which, prior to American Cop, Loren didn't have a website even. So, it's been a big, you've had a massive brand growth, which, by the way, congratulations on your new store, which I've got the mug here and I love. I'm a coffee addict,
Cheers.
admittedly. Cheers. So I would say if you're watching and you haven't checked out Loren's online store, it's got a ton of great products on there. And this is my favorite though.
All right. Well, thank you very much, April. I think we're having a little bit of an internet delay there. Are you still with me?
I'm here. Yep. I just said, like,
okay.
Just grab that book. It's called The Influencer's Path. That'll give you a pathway to figure out what you want to do next.
Okay. So yeah, go to April O'Leary or O'LearyPublishing.com and get her guide, and then get a hold of her and get your book out there. Everybody's got a story, and you never know who wants to hear it. So you have anything else that you'd like to add, April?
I would just like to say that Loren's book, An Insubordinate Life, is on pre-order. I'm going to do the promotion for you, Loren. So go to chiefculp.com and make sure you get a copy, because those are flying off the shelf, and those will be out soon. And you're going to definitely want to read Loren's story because it's amazing. He really is someone to follow, and make sure that you get a couple copies for friends. So that's what I want to say. I want to plug you, Loren, because I really, really think that what you're doing is amazing.
You are awesome. And I'm going to be seeing you in person in Florida. I'm going to be accompanying the End of Watch ride. This is a trailer that they take all around the United States to the different police departments who have lost an officer. Last year, we're going to honor over 300 police officers who lost their life in the line of duty in 2020. And part of that is a trip into Florida to visit some departments and families down there. And I'm going to make it a point to at least have a cup of coffee with you. And then later on, I'm already booked for a speaking engagement at Fort Myers, Florida in October. So I look forward to seeing you a couple times this year, at least.
I'm excited about that. Yes. And I promised Loren a ride in my convertible at the top down, because we don't have winters like you all have in Washington. I think today it's like 85 and sunny.
Is it really? I still have snow on the ground here, April.
Yeah. I was at the beach for sunset last night.
Well, I've seen some of your videos. It's absolutely beautiful down there on the beach.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. April O'Leary, you guys, from O'Leary Publishing. Make sure that you go to her website. You know, even if you don't have the story that you want to put out there yourself, you know someone that does. You know, a relative, a grandparent. If nothing else, get a story into a book for your family, for your heritage, for your grandchildren and great-grandchildren that you may not even know yet. You know, I always thought it would be amazing to have a story written by my grandparents or my great-great-grandparents about things that they experienced in their life. So check that out, o'learypublishing.com. And stick with me. I'll be right back with final thoughts right after this quick message. I'm untouchable.
Would you have a message for Loren Culp? Who's Loren Culp?
Hi, I'm Christopher Gergen, Senior Advisor to the Culp organization. You know, I spent over a year on the road campaigning with the American Cop, and from those experiences, I thought I really knew Loren Culp. But then, I read Loren's new book, and holy there's so much more to this guy than I could have ever imagined. His new book, An Insubordinate Life, pulls back the curtain and reveals the real-life experiences that shaped the conservative warrior many of you got to know on the campaign trail. The follow-up book to his #1 bestseller, American Cop, hits the market in May 2021. But you can get on the pre-sale list now to get a signed copy of the book before everyone else. To get your copy of An Insubordinate Life, visit chiefculp.com. And while you're there, check out all of Loren's patriotic gear designed specifically for patriots like you. So what are you waiting for? Head over to chiefculp.com to get your copy of An Insubordinate Life today.
All right, you guys, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with me. April O'Leary, the founder of O'Leary Publishing. What an amazing person, right? Over the last few years since writing American Cop and working on my new book, An Insubordinate Life, I've gotten to know her pretty well. And I can tell you that she is a kind, thoughtful, and genuine human being. She lives with passion. You can tell that, right? I wanted the main theme for tonight's show to be about stories and change for the good. And to let all of you know that you have a story in you. Whether you decide to have it published into a book or not, or whether you just decide to write your thoughts and your experiences down in a journal, I highly recommend that you do write things down. Start a diary, start a journal. Your successes, your failures. You know, I don't really call anything a failure. They're all learning experiences. You know, everything that we go through in life, doesn't matter whether it turns out the way we thought it would turn out or not. Everything in life is really a success because we learn from things that don't turn out the way we wanted them to. All part of life. But how cool would it be to be able to pick up a journal or a book, published or not, that was written from 4 or 5 generations ago? Your great, 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 great grandparents, you know, wrote things down in a journal. They wrote a book about things that they've dealt with. I've often thought about that. You know, wouldn't it be cool to have information from my ancestors who lived in the 1700s or the 1800s, things that they had to deal with? What was their life like? What did they do for a living? What kind of tragedies and triumphs did they have to deal with? Who were they? You know, that's you, that's me, that's us in the coming years, in the coming decades and centuries. And it would be a gift to have something from our past, from people that we don't know. We may not even know that they existed, but to have things that they dealt with in their life, to be able to look back on your family's history. And that's us. You know, that's us in the coming years and the coming decades. We are our family's history. So I encourage everyone to give that gift to your future generations. Write things down. Like I said, whether it's published or not. You know, if you want to get your story published, I strongly urge you to contact O'Leary Publishing. And you can, even if you don't want to have it published, there's like April mentioned, you can get her free guide to publishing. Just go to her website. Let me get this right. O'LearyPublishing.com. And you can download the free guide on how to get a book published. But that's a gift. You know, nobody knows your history better than you. Nobody knows what you're dealing with right now. I mean, that would be a prized possession for me if I had something written from even my grandparents, you know, just the grandparents that I knew, to have a journal or a book written by them, let alone people, you know, from the last century or two, to see what they were like, what they dealt with, the good times, the bad times. That would be awesome. And that's you. That's us. So I encourage you to write, even if it's just a diary, because your story matters. Your life matters. The lessons that you've learned in your life matter. Things that you're going through right now matter. And just like April's little booklet, the old cocoon. You know, we all stay in our comfort zone too often. I know I did. But once, you know, like is illustrated in the story, once that caterpillar actually did leave the cocoon, it turned into a butterfly. And it didn't realize that when it was a caterpillar. So check that out. Check out o'learypublishing.com, and you can pick up her book, I think on her website or on Amazon too. It's only like $4 or $5. But it's very inspirational. It's very eye-opening. So that's it, you guys. God bless you, and God bless your family. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Please share this with your friends. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Take care and God bless.